What's going on, everyone? Welcome to a Football Friday edition of Back Your Play with Q. I'm your host, as always, Rich Quinones, hashtag BYP at Rich QNQ, YouTube channel, Rich QNQ. And look at this. We pulled him out of the dark. He's got the Yanks hat on. We won't even worry about the Knicks. Maybe we talk little Cowboys. I think we are. My guy, Corey Parson, who's killing it with the Better Network at the Fantasy Exec. What's going on, brother?
What's going on, Rich? Good talking to you. You know what I'm saying? So we've come down to the biggest football weekend of the year. So I guess it's time to break out the biggest heavy hitter of the BYP network. That's
what I said. Look, man, you must be doing well because the lights are on.
So there you go. So we got that. We got that part right there taken care of, and then we get the water back on, and we'll be good to go. But now, definitely, a successful season. Looking forward to a successful end of the season. And then, as we push through the calendar with March Madness and the NBA playoffs and stuff like that. So the grind is the grind. And you know what I mean? The good news is I'm doing pretty well currently. So I think we may be able to get you some winners.
Well, I know there's going to be some obscure MEAC play later on.
I wish. Not tonight.
I don't know. I can poke the bear a little bit. All right, let's start with the NFL. I want to flash back to last week because, look, Giants go into Minnesota. They pick up the W. Obviously, great hit, cover, money line, the gamut. Cincinnati, Buffalo leaking a little bit of oil. We saw how those games played out. And then you got the Chargers where, let's be honest, you were basically trying to bank and count a little coin up 27-7 in that one. Jacksonville comes back. I don't know if you had a play on that game. I did. I took the Charger side. I took them on the ML. I took them on the money line. I was pissed off. I couldn't believe it. I was like, this is just utterly ridiculous. What was your best play last week? And what was also you got to be, effing kidding me play?
So let's start with, let's start with Jacksonville. It wasn't my best play of the week, but I did have the Jags on the money line. Then I went back in there and I grabbed them when the score was 27-14. You kind of got a feeling pretty early in that comeback that Staley and the Chargers were going to fumble that bag. I thought the Chargers had a solid season. Then their defense improved at times, but yet still, I didn't think that coming across the country and beating Jacksonville, short road favorite in the playoffs, was going to be a tough deal. A true short road favorite. But my best play of Super Wild Card Weekend, you got to throw the Super in there, was Daniel Jones over 1.5 touchdown passes. Now, that was a play that I would never in my life think that I'd be going, oh, this is the play right here.
Yeah. I
have been highly critical of Daniel Jones in his NFL career. Why did the Giants go to Duke to draft a point guard? The New York's teams, instead of getting Zion, we got Daniel Jones. We bought the wrong guy from Duke. But
hold on a second. I haven't spoken to you almost a football freaking calendar year, and here you come on. Zachary, look, come on, man. I don't need to hear that kind of nonsense coming out.
I got to keep it 100. Can I keep it? I just want to keep it 100 with you.
100.
I am very impressed of what the New York Giants became this season. The way they started the season, basically keep the game close. Yeah. And in the fourth quarter, you make the mistake and not them. Yeah. And that formula worked. They hit a little skid where you was kind of wondering what was going on. Then they pulled it back together, and I think they're playing their best football of the season right now. But going down that turnpike this weekend could be tough.
Yeah, no doubt. Listen, I love Jones's total rushing yards total. I just thought it was going to be 65 plus with the RPOs. It might not be the same. And then, listen, San Francisco, I thought that was an easy call against Seattle. San Francisco, to me, they're built to make a deep run in the playoffs. We'll go to that game last, but let's kind of run through the gamut. Let's go Jacksonville, Kansas City. I know the line 9.5. I don't foresee any way Kansas City loses this game, let alone doesn't cover in this game. I think Jacksonville comes down a little bit. It's a different animal than Kansas City. They're motivated. They're pissed off. I think trends be damned in this one. I think Mahomes is going to have a big time game. The only way Jacksonville maybe keeps this close or maybe a backdoor cover is if they're trailing late and Trevor Lawrence got to throw them back in the game.
Yeah, no, I think it's going to be tough. And listen, I would warn people what you're going to hear over the course of the next, up until we get the kickoff of that game. Is going to be talking about the Kansas City Chiefs and their regular season record against the spread, especially when they're home favorites. Not really a good spot for them. But if if you dig a little deeper and you go to playoffs, Kansas City Chiefs as home favorite in 2018, we'll call that the Patrick Mahomes era. 7-4 ATS is a home favorite. They don't play. They get you in that building. That's a true home field advantage. You won't have no weather this weekend, but it's one of the tougher playoff environments in the NFL. The Jacksonville Jaguars aren't ready for that experience yet. They've had a great end of their season, but now they're stepping up in weight class. And yeah, Kansas City Chiefs win this game, lay the number. I'll lay 8.5. I'll lay 9.
The only X factor I would say is that you've got a playoff experience, a playoff veteran head coach. And Doug, obviously we know Big Red on the other side. I can't really say familiarity, so to speak, but to me, ETN might be the X card in this one. If he can start going off a little bit, you flip the field, flip the script. They have to figure out a way to keep that offense off the field. Do you like the over in this one?
I think this game is probably shade more towards the under. I think, Kansas City, 53 is a big number. Yeah. I think Kansas City will pace the game. I think they'll get their lead. They'll pace the game. I think Jacksonville will have some trouble. I think this will come in just under.
Tell me what you think about this. I'm looking at a 31-17 type of game.
31-17, somewhere in there. I probably would have been like somewhere like around, about 30-21, something like that.
Okay, fair enough. Cincinnati and Buffalo. And listen, from what I'm hearing out west, a lot of public money's coming on Cincinnati, and we're seeing right now, the line 5.
Steam.
Listen, Corey, I think Cincinnati has no pressure on them because this was a team that went to the Super Bowl last year. They're trying to get back. The Rams won it. They went out with a friggin' whimper. You got Buffalo, and I've been having a lot of people ask me this all week on BYP and on the thread as well on social media. What about that emotional element, DeMar Hamlin? Listen, fantastic that this young man released from the hospital and doing his thing, and that's great. The emotional element, I think New England, and then you saw it last week, but I also think it was a detriment because maybe that team pressed a little bit. Allen made a lot of bad mistakes. Miami hung in there, and if it's not for the head coach smoking and joking on the sideline late with the play clock, listen, they could have pulled off one of the biggest upsets in playoff history. I mean, when we think about that. So right now, I am leaning towards Cincinnati, and I'll even do you one better. I know Josh Allen 4-0 at home in the playoffs. I like Cincinnati on the money line in this one. I've been riding Cincinnati all season long.
Yeah, I think about halfway through the season, you kind of realized Cincinnati was still in that mix to be in the class of the AFC. The only thing they really had to do was get past the Baltimore Ravens. And Baltimore, Baltimore didn't have a good year this year. Baltimore still would have been tough, especially if Lamar Jackson was playing. But now here's the deal, right? You're going to hear all this talk about the Bengals offensive line. The Bengals offensive line always stunk. So these injuries this week, new. Joe Burrow, it's nothing new. Joe Burrow always compete with a banged up or a offensive line that's not up to speed, not up to performance. So it's nothing new for him. Now, this is a different defense. This is not Tennessee from last year. This is not the Raiders. That's not Ryan Tannehill giving it back to you on the other side. So I think it's a cover. I think the Buffalo Bills hang on and win the game, but I would take the number. I don't like being on such a public underdog.
Yeah, fair point.
Like they're a very public underdog, and the number is moving away. Like I've seen a 6 flash, and I'm like, wow, I would have thought this would have been 2.5, 3, and this is all the way up to 6.
And you can't even talk about recency bias because look, they both basically almost lost. I mean, if it's Cincinnati, you get that fumble return going back the other way, you get bailed out. And then as we mentioned, if Miami actually figured out a way, what the hell they were doing, if the receivers actually bailed out this kid Thompson, maybe that's a game. So it's not like, say, San Francisco waxing Seattle or Dallas waxing Tampa Bay. Let's do a little recency bias and see how it plays into the number. But let me ask you this for a second. When you look at Buffalo, I also think that they're getting a little tight, man.
Yeah.
I think they're pressing a little bit. And what happens when you do that? All the pressure at home, got to get to the Super Bowl, got to win it for DeMar. Here we go. But the game within the game, Josh Allen does not look like the same type of quarterback we saw early on in the season.
Here's the deal: we don't notice it. This has been him for a minute. You know, in his last 36 games, he's turned the ball over 40 times. That's unreal. That's unheard of. That's Dak Prescott like. Now, with that being said, they figure out a way to win the game. Here's the deal: if the Buffalo Bills are going to be successful, they're going to have to make Josh Allen the primary runner of the football. When they're playing that style, when Allen is running and taking those deep shots, when Allen becomes the running back, Buffalo is tough to beat. Now, listen, do you want to run your quarterback like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, listen, when, if not now, when? It's the AFC Divisional Round. So he got to go out there and get the win, and I think he can do it. But I would take the over on Josh Allen rushing prop because I think a rushing Josh Allen is what it's going to take for Buffalo to win this game. But listen, it's probably going to be one of the biggest public dogs you'll ever see in the NFL playoffs, Cincinnati Bengals this weekend. It's going to be interesting to see if that ticket cashes or not.
The only other, I can go back a couple years ago, and I'm sure it was probably creeping around 7 plus. Remember when Tennessee knocked off Baltimore?
Yes.
There was a lot of late money coming in
on Tennessee,
on the Titans.
Interesting. Yeah.
How about this though? Offensively for Cincinnati, and it leads into a potential player prop. What about Joe Mixon? You know, you got
to get him the ball more.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. 25 plus touches.
Yeah, you got to get him the ball more. He's one of their best players. Listen, the quarterback and the wide receivers are excellent, but Mixon can really help control the game, help pace the game, keep Buffalo off the field. He's a tough runner. He catches the ball out the backfield. He's got a nose for the goal line. He's a real good player, Joe Mixon. They got to get him involved more. Sometimes I think they get a little too happy with those playmakers on the outside. I like to see them run Mixon a little bit more.
Who's got more pressure on him, though? Joe Burrow or Josh Allen?
Josh Allen, 100% Josh Allen. You know what I'm saying? They were the team that was supposed to be there. They were the team that, you know what I'm saying, has been basically been the favorite all year long to be the team to go to the Super Bowl. They're the team that has the purpose to play for right now. And listen, it's been two seasons, Josh Allen in the MVP conversation up there as the candidate. Turned the ball over too much. He turns the ball over and they lose this game this week, it's going to be on him. If Joe Burrow gets eliminated, they're going to say it was the offensive line and you were in a tough spot. Burrow won't get blamed for a Bengal loss. Allen will 100% get blamed for a Bills loss.
Interesting. That's a very interesting point you bring up. I didn't think about it like that because, and by the way, I pulled it up. Ravens were favored by 10 in that game.
Wow. And they lost outright.
28-12.
I beat up too. That's Mike Vrabel.
Yep. That was an ML hit for me, man. I went on the air and I called that one. I mean, far and few, but that was a pretty nice play for myself. I just think, I wonder though, how much are we subscribing into the emotional element? Because at the end of the day, you still have to play the game. And
but it gives them purpose. You see what I'm saying? I think that's what it gives them purpose. Yeah. So they're playing with a little extra something. And I'm sure DeMar will be out there this weekend. As a matter of fact, I heard that him and T. Higgins are supposed to meet up this weekend. They probably won't do that on the field. Yeah. They'll probably be in the back somewhere. But DeMar Hamlin will come out on that field this Sunday before that game starts. And it's going to be a tough environment. But you're right. Marvin Gaye can come on the field. You still got to play the game.
Corey Parson, the fantasy exec, host of the Better Network, kind enough to join us on Friday edition of BYP. Rich Quinones here. All right, so two more to knock out here. We'll go to the Giants and the Philadelphia Eagles. And I mean, listen, I've tried to slice and dice this. I've tried to be objective as possible. 7.5. We know about House of Horrors going down the turnpike for the Giants over the years, and just the bugaboo, the ghost, the Victor Cruz game, the late field goal, the Tynes misses, the Ingram drop. I get all of it, man. 7.5 from a betting standpoint is a big time number. the Giants need this game to be in the fourth quarter. Even if they're down 6-10 points, they have to make it that ugly kind of, we'll take your best shots, we'll take your best punches. But I believe offensively, it's going to have to be Daniel Jones, and it's going to have to be Daniel Jones and Saquon, even if you have to force feed him the ball to soften up the defense. I'm trying to figure out a path to victory for the Giants here, and that defense.
Well, you got to contain Jalen Hurts in that rush.
But how effective do you think he's going to be? The running game, yes, because I think they ran for almost 300 yards.
Odds makers think he's going to be effective, laying 7.5. That hook is still sitting out there on that one.
So, okay, real quick, follow me on this notion. You said the odds makers think because of Hurts' running ability, he's not 100%. I think that's more to Lane Johnson coming back too.
I get that. I can add that into the mix. Obviously, he's a big piece of what they do, and he's a big piece of that rushing attack. That multi-pronged rushing attack, which the rushing attack that put up the quarterback ran for 150 yards in the first quarter. Like, that's how they can get on it when they're rolling. And they can be very hard to stop. Like, I came into this season not thinking that Hurts was the guy. I came in this season not seeing what was so good with Philadelphia. And by the time they laid it on Tennessee about 4 or 5 weeks ago, I was like, man, this team right here is going to be very, very difficult to beat. They got a lot of speed. They got a lot of talent. They're excellent in the trenches. But can they get tipped? Yeah, sure they can. You know what I'm saying? They have lost some of their luster down the stretch. It's just hard for me to see, as a betting person, odds makers letting this hook stay out there. So I would have to lay the number with the Eagles, and that's probably would be the only reason why.
But I would go the opposite way. With the hook being out there, I would lay it with the Giants because
That's what I'm saying. That's too easy of a bet to make. It's a trap, Rich.
Listen, man, I don't fall in the traps.
All right. It's a trap. That 7.5 is a trap.
But what if that line closes at 8?
No, that would be crazy if it got up to 8.
So again, if we're thinking about it, if you're looking for a little CLV, a little closing line value, you might have to wait to see where the money, let's just say 7:30, 8-ish.
Yeah.
Right?
What if it drops? I'm curious as to where this is going to close. If this closes 7, then I'm like, okay, maybe the Giants are live. But if this closes 7.5, then the odds makers know that Philadelphia is getting ready to beat the Giants up.
I was going to go that route too. Yeah. If it closes at 7 in the hook, then they're thinking 31-10.
Yeah, exactly.
At 7, it might be a 27-21 type of game.
You know what's so funny about this rivalry right here? It's, for the most part, it's been kind of dominated, the big moments by the Philadelphia Eagles. You had Randall Cunningham with that pass. Harry Carson.
Monday Night Football, Jimmy Giles, Carl Banks hit him. Jimmy Giles back in the end zone. What are you telling?
You talking about the 80 something yard punt? You know what I'm saying?
I
miracle at the Meadowlands.
I sick of him. I can go through it. Deshaun Jackson.
That was a painful one right there.
Brian Westbrook, who got there was a friggin' clip in the back by Ike Reese. I can go to 2008 when the ball hung up there after Bradshaw ran it back 60 yards and McNabb picked up the phone. I can keep going through the gamut.
McNabb picked up the phone. Couldn't get these dudes. They stink.
Listen to me. It must end sometime. It has to. It's a house of horrors. I can't take it. I wanted to have a calm spot with you. I didn't even get into the hot toddy yet. And all you did is poke and you pried. It has to end.
On the New York Giants, a fabulous season. They're not going to the NFC Championship game.
We've seen this before, though.
No, I know. That's why I'm I say that with my fingers crossed because the Giants if the Giants get to the NFC Championship game, they probably gonna win the Super Bowl, and that would be horrible.
Not for me, listen.
No,
I'll
not for
say
you.
This, with the way that number is, and this is your perfect example of public sentiment, right? Where again, you don't bet based on emotion. we saw what the Giants did. They went on the road and they beat Minnesota. I don't want to hear the crap about Minnesota being a soft team, because by that rationale, then I can turn around. Why is everyone giving Dallas and Dak Prescott a world of credit for beating a horrible Tampa Bay team? So let's just put that there for one moment, okay?
I would agree with you on that.
Okay, secondary, and most importantly, when you look at the way Daniel Jones has played and he hasn't turned the football over and the line is doing their job, I think there's going to be a point in this game tomorrow night where they get smacked in the mouth, they get a couple 3-and-outs, and the defense turns around and says, enough is enough. We're going to try to take over this game and we're going to try to win it. And I'll tell you who the X factor is going to be in that front. It's going to be Sexy Dexy.
He's been very good.
Oh, listen, they're going to knock Jalen Hurts on his ass. I mean, they're going to have to hit him. Now, if you can catch him, yeah, but how effective is he going to be?
Do you have the speed on defense to do this?
I think they're going to have a spy. They'll have a roamer. You can look at the linebacker. You can look at Smith. You can look at Collins maybe as the hybrid. Remember, too, the last time they played, no Bellinger, no Williams, no Adoree Jackson, no McKinney. So now they got the secondary back, right? So you're going to stay mano a mano with those great wide receivers for the Philadelphia Eagles. If the giant wideouts can't get separation, it's going to be a long night. If they can't get separation, it's going to be a long night, because it'll be a lot of dink and dunk, methodically moving ball down the field. And I don't see them winning that type of game. I believe they keep this game close. I'm not going to sit here right now and say they win the game, but I believe they keep it close and they cover the number.
And when you played the first game, Miles Sanders had 144 yards rushing.
They're two different teams. They're two different teams. Stop laughing, because I know what you're thinking. You're trying to talk yourself into it.
You're trying to talk yourself into it.
I am.
You're trying to talk yourself into it.
Listen, they were horrible. And what happened the second time around? Jalen Hurts hasn't played meaningful football in a month. Lane Johnson's been out. Okay, so can we talk a little bit about?
But like, what was the outlier in that game? Everything, you only turned the ball over once. The time of possession was about the same. The Giants are 4 for 4-13 on third down.
In what game? The first or second?
The first game, 4-13 on third down that's pretty terrible right there. Your defense couldn't stop them.
They had horrible breakdowns, especially the Julian Love play where he should have blown up Smith on the fourth down call. That changed the whole.
I do believe the Giants are a different team now. I do believe that.
All right. So we do a thing here on the show when we talk about confidence level with the Duke. Okay. Either you are, I make up words, by the way, either you are flated up or you are deflated. So right now, are you deflated or you flated up that the Giants are going to go in there and cover?
Oh, they're not going to cover. They're not going to come deflated. I think it'd be 31-21, something along that line. Listen, the Giants are a couple drafts away, but I do like the direction the team is moving. And if I would be optimistic if I was a fan of the New York Giants.
I mean, and I can appreciate you. Why we get along, we have such a good rapport, is because you won't sugarcoat it with me.
Even I mean, and I'm sure you're not going to do the same to me, because we're getting ready to talk Cowboys and Niners.
Wearing that Yankee hat, a Cowboy fan. Disgrace. All right, you're right. Turnabout is fair play. All right, let's go to your Dallas Cowboys taking on San Francisco. I've seen the number move a little bit, 3.5, 4. I was surprised where it opened. I actually grabbed it. I believe it opened at 3.
It opened at 3.5.
Yeah. I grabbed it. San Francisco. So this is your classic recency bias. If we're going
I agree
all over the Giants, then let's talk about this. San Francisco took care of Seattle, right? And Gino made the mistakes when he made the mistakes, but San Francisco is just a different animal, man. You get Debo, you got my man Skittles back there running over the tight end. You got the running backs, you got CMC, you got Purdy. I don't care about this notion. He's a young kid. He's playing with a ton of confidence, and defensively, they'll figure out a way to scheme, and they'll figure out a way to first and foremost play the run against Dallas. Then conversely, you have your Cowboys. I thought Tampa Bay was going to give them a fight, and they absolutely shredded and manhandled Tampa Bay. And quick side note, can Mike Evans friggin' sell out on that pass so I can hit the effing over?
I had the under.
Strike two against you. So I think this is a little recency bias. I don't believe people are still sold on Dallas. And I also think what's scaring people off is we don't need a 24-23 game and Dallas is lining up for a 52-yard field goal to win it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's scary right there. And that worries me. It's a number of things that worry me. The San Francisco 49ers rushing attack is the number one thing that worries me. Same thing Giants fans should be worried about, the other team's ability to run the football. And San Francisco runs the football uniquely and probably better than anybody in the NFL. And when they get rolling, San Francisco can hammer you. And we've been seeing that the last 11 weeks. Brock Purdy, I believe, only one game where that team has scored under 30 points since Purdy has been there. Now, Dallas Cowboys, you're right. Recency bias. Like the way they looked last week, week before. I'm new seeing that Dallas Cowboy team too. I'm not a big fan of the quarterback. Led the league in interceptions this year despite missing 5 games. So all of that is out there. I'm on board with all of that stuff. I figured the spread, I thought the point spread was going to open up 4.5, 5, may push up to 6. That's where I thought it would have been. I saw 3.5. I was like, oh, this is interesting. So there's 2 things that I'm, full disclosure, talking myself into. Number one, so this is win 11 last week. This week could be 12, NFC Championship 13, Super Bowl 14. So this team is going to go on a 14-game winning streak with a third-string quarterback. I think that's a little, concerning because eventually you get to do what he has to do this week, and that's step up in weight class because you got a different defense coming than he's seen all year, an ability to rush the passer, and a team that is familiar with San Francisco. Yeah. They know exactly what San Francisco is and what they like to do. So it comes down to how all these games come down to the trenches is going to be important. Turnover battle is going to be important. And special teams is going to be important. Special teams will play a role in this game.
Of course they will.
Yep. Now, would it be missed kicks or a kick return or a punt return? Who knows? The special teams will play a role. I think the reason why I'm taking the 4 or the 3.5 with it, I'm not going to go bet against the Cowboys. But I'm taking the points. I'm not sprinkling the money line. I'm taking the points. But I think what Dallas is Mike McCarthy is not as bad a head coach as everybody thinks he is. And I think you saw when the Cowboys went to Kellen Moore early in the season, he ran, not Kellen Moore, when they went to Cooper Rush, McCarthy reined Kellen Moore in and kind of was like, okay, let's play the game this way. And Dallas played well. Pollard took off. Zeke paced the game. The wide receivers made the play. He didn't turn the ball over. When Dak Prescott got back, it's like every week you got further and further and further away from that style of play. And then it crashed and burned in Washington.
Yeah. So
then you had to go back and say, okay, Kellen, it's not going to be on Dak. Let's use the offensive line. Let's run the football. It was mentioned on the broadcast Monday night. It would never happen. Won't even get close to ever happening as long as we watching football. But the best offensive rookie in the NFL this year was the Cowboys tackle, Tyler Smith. He was great because when Tyler Smith got hurt early in the season, everybody thought the season was over at that point.
Huge loss.
He came in there and you didn't even know that Smith was not there. So now Smith is healthy in the playoffs for the first time in forever. The Cowboys' health on their offensive line is probably their strength coming into this game.
All right. So are you done trying to convince yourself? Can I put
yes.
Let me put you on the sofa for a little therapy session, right?
There you go. Let's get it.
Yeah, he's going to talk to you for a little bit. A couple things. Your point about San Francisco having to win X amount of games, it's one game at a time, right? So let's just, okay. Also, if you think about what they added midsection or mid-season early on with McCaffrey, he's a phenomenal running back. And now you get the emergence of Debo. You have the mismatch at the tight end. you have the wideouts. And this kid is playing, they're catering the offense where if you look at the numbers, man, he's not going to blow you away per se, but when the opportunity is there and he's taking shots down the field, it's ridiculous. He's thrown 1,300 yards, 13 touchdowns, 4 picks, his compiled a rating of 107.3. If you look what he did against Seattle, nobody thought that kid was going to put up those types of numbers against Seattle. Now, granted, Seattle is not Dallas. All right. We talk about that defense. We know Michael Parsons can wreck the game. I get it. They're going to have to spy on Kittle. I think he might have a monster game. And I also think they're going to roll this kid out a little bit and keep him in harm's way. You're going to see a lot of bubble screens. You're going to see Debo get his touches 20-25. You're going to see Christian get his touches, 18 to 20. I think that is going to soften you guys up. And I think it's basically like going through 10 to 12 rounds. My boxing, I love it. Yeah. I use the analogy. It's just body shot, body shot, body shot. And what happens when you keep going to the body? The head's going to fall. That's what I see happening. Now, to your point on McCarthy, I can't sit here with any confidence and say this man is a very good head coach, because there will be a point during this game where he's going to have to make a decision. Do I trot Maher out there or do I go for it? Let me check the analytics. Let me look at this, let me look at the chart. 4th and 3 on San Francisco's 40-yard line. And that kicker is shaky. If he turns around and goes to his kicker, to me, once again, that actually tells me he's coaching scared.
So it's the moment of the game. It's easy to say that verbally, but the game has to be going on to really get the feel for what's taking place. Of course.
But he did it the other day. He realized I can't keep trotting him out. He went out of character. And decided I can't keep trotting this guy out. And the other thing is, let's just say he shanks 1 or 2. Now you got to start thinking we got to start going for 2.
How was it doing something that you rarely see people do, carrying 2 place kickers this weekend?
That's to.
You got to. So now somebody else is going to be not available to be on a 53-man roster because of that. That's not a good look right there.
It's not.
So I agree with you on that. But let's talk. Let's go back on Purdy right quick though. Halftime last week, the score was 17-17.
Yep.
Brock Purdy had 19 pass attempts in the first half of that game.
I know where
the score was tied.
Yep.
You come back in the second half, they sit that run on you.
11 passes.
You let Purdy sit back there and throw it. Then that's not how San Francisco wants to play. That's why the game was in the trenches. But listen, San Francisco don't mind playing the game in the trenches. We know that. San Francisco is the better football team, but the Dallas Cowboys got a puncher's shot.
Every team has a puncher's shot, man. Line be damned. We know that. Dallas, what Dak's going to show up?
I agree with you on that.
Right? Listen, that game swung. The whole complexion of that game, I believe the other night swung when Brady had the red zone pick, where he backpedaled. He saw the rush, very uncharacteristic. Dak to me is like, he's an enigma, man. Like, it's just sometimes, I don't know, man. You're out at the bar with your friends late at night, and maybe you spot the brunette in the corner, and the lighting looks good, and she looks fine, and you're good to go. And all of a sudden, when the lights come on and the bar's getting ready to close, maybe she wasn't as cute as you thought she once was, right? So
100%. That's Dak Prescott. Here's the deal. He's got to do it. He's got to be able to run the football. Dak Prescott has to pick up first downs and get critical yardage with his legs. He's a better player when he plays that way. We want to avoid getting Dak hurt. It is the division round. There ain't that many more rounds after this. If he get hurt on Sunday, so fine. He'll be back next year. You know what I'm saying? I'd rather have him go out there. He needs to run a mobile Dak Prescott. If Dak Prescott run for 40, 50 yards this week, the Cowboys will win the game.
Well, he's going to listen. You get the legs in there. You factor that in. You extend drives. You keep that offense off the field. I just think San Francisco is just defensively, man. They got game wreckers. And I'm not saying you guys don't. I'm not saying the Cowboys don't. But I'll also say this. Cowboys secondary is feast or famine at times, man.
Well, listen, I think it's important that Jaron Kearse played this week. Well, was back at practice. He's important to that secondary. Diggs has not had the season he had last year. It was a time when the worst part of the Dallas Cowboys team was their secondary. That's not the case no more. The secondary is competent. It's not elite, but it's competent.
Yeah. The other thing that might concern me a little bit with the 49ers is I think they're going to pick on Ward.
Yeah, well, that can happen too, and that can be a strength for them. But it's still, hey, listen, it's still a quarterback who is 13 years old, and he's got to play in the biggest game of his career. So there you go, right there.
All right, listen, the marker's out, the green for the coin and the money. All right, so where are you going with this one? Reiterate it again. Where are you going with this one?
Dallas Cowboys +4.
Gutless.
Dallas Cowboys +4.
Gutless. I think San Francisco is going to throttle them.
I'm sure you do.
No, well, hold on a second. I'm not trying to get paid back on you.
Yeah.
No. Not because I respect your opinion, whether we
of course,
agree or not,
yeah.
right? I think it's such recency bias with Dallas right now. Everyone's drinking the juice. Here we go. America's team, the star. This is it. McCarthy figured it out. Dak figured it out. Referendum on their career. I mean, you might think if you really push back and say, maybe the best case scenario, you thought if they lost the other night, they got rid of the head coach. But again.
Yeah, that would have happened. Now, here's the deal.
Yeah.
If they would have lost that game on Monday night.
Yeah.
That would have been one of the Dallas Cowboys is maybe the biggest franchise in all of American sports. If they would have lost that game, it would have been a seminal moment in the history of that franchise because you would have saw Mike McCarthy going. Jerry would have been like, Steven, I don't care what you say. This is my football team.
Great.
And it would have been, then it would have been, okay, the Dak Prescott, Ezekiel Elliott era in Dallas, a failure.
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost
that
like
one loss would have set all of that off.
Yeah, it's like when you talk about what happened in 2007, everything was set up 13-3, number one seed, and boom, who goes across the middle? Creighton drops it. Listen, I'm just calling.
You know, it's so funny on my show today.
Yeah.
I'm doing my theme is the agony of defeat, and the theme of the show is we're going to be discussing your worst loss as a fan. The agony of defeat. The worst one is the catch. I'm young.
You go Dwight Clark.
Dwight Clark. I remember the catch. So that is number one for me. That game right there is in the top 5. It's either that or the reverse the curse Yankee Red Sox, but that's up there too. Charles Smith too. You know what I'm saying? But that are some of my most agonizing defeats right there. And we getting the audio ready to play on the show. And at the end of the game, Joe Buck says the New York Giants are 9 seconds away from the NFC Championship. And my heart, even hearing it last night, was like, oh no. You're like, that's the last thing I want to happen.
Fourth down pick. R.W. McQuarter.
You remember the play? It was Patrick Creighton dropped, but would have been a touchdown to start that drive.
Yeah.
And then on the last play of the game, Patrick Creighton ran the wrong route. Dez caught it. That was another brutal loss. You know what I'm saying? That was a championship team. Dez caught it was a championship team.
I do the pod with Brandon Jacobs, 27 I actually asked him this last night. I said, did you enjoy playing Philly or Dallas more? And he said, I enjoyed playing in Philly. He goes, but he knows everyone did disdain for the Cowboys. And we talked about 2007. He said that win, in his opinion, was bigger than the 2 Super Bowl wins because it was a divisional opponent. They got ransacked in the middle of the season, and that team had no expectation. No one thought that team could go into Dallas at that moment and beat them when you think about it. And my good friend is a diehard Cowboys fan, and he'll always just randomly text me once in a while, the Creighton drop, right? I mean, think about that. And it's funny because 2011, the Giants were 9-7 and went into Green Bay.
This is the thing that is not funny to me. If they beat Philadelphia, if the Giants beat Philadelphia, they're going to the Super Bowl. Because I've seen it happen too many times where these mediocre Giant teams go win the damn Super Bowl. And these are not good teams. In 2007, they was getting ready to run Eli Manning out of town. That was it. That was it for Eli Manning and Tom Coughlin. It was over. in 2011. If Victor Cruz does not make that run, the Jets win that game.
Christmas Day. So it's funny you mentioned that because Eli had the game where he had the 3-4 picks return. And I remember I did a spot on Fox Sports that time. They knew I was a big time Giant fan. And there was like a 10-second Fox Sports radio. There was a 10-second pause. And they're like, "Where'd you go?" And I was like, "Hold on a second." I said, "Number 10 just threw another pick in the parking lot." Like I convinced myself that he was going to be the guy. And I'm the biggest staunch Eli defender. There were so many seminal moments in that season, right? Because Dallas waxed them to open up the season, and then Green Bay did, and they got the 4th down stop in DC to get their first win. The playoff run, Tampa, Dallas, Green Bay, great run. 2011, though, let's be honest, man. You could have argued Eli was MVP of the league, man, because that rushing attack,
he played much better. Yeah, he was good.
He had all the fourth quarter comebacks and everything, and the Giants are feast and famine when they get in the playoffs. We know that, right? But listen, if they figure out a way to pull it off and they have to play Dallas, well, I'll ask you this right now. Who would you rather see? If Dallas wins, would you prefer the Eagles or the Giants?
Listen, it's crazy this may sound, I prefer to play the Eagles. I prefer to play the Eagles because the Giants got like a rabbit shoe. You know, when they get into these playoffs, they figure out a way. The thing with the Eagles is Dallas plays very good against the Eagles. Dak plays good against the Eagles. The Cowboys have played well against the Eagles historically. I'm not really worried about the Eagles. It's like, to me, I take the history aspect of it too, Rich. Like, for example, I did not want Carolina to win the NFC East. Dallas always loses in Carolina. Always loses in Carolina. And I wouldn't have been surprised if the Panthers would have beat the Cowboys this past weekend.
Wow. Well, it's like almost saying, hey, nobody wanted to see the Lions kind of get in. By the way, real quick, before I let you get out of here, would you think 2 things? Do you think Brady's done, or do you think he's done in Tampa and maybe goes to, say, Miami or Vegas? You can insert any team. And I want to get into Aaron Rodgers in a second. So what's your thoughts on Brady?
Tom Brady is done in Tampa. I see Las Vegas being Tom Brady's next destination.
All right. And then Aaron Rodgers. So I did a short and I did a BYP show last week because I think he's ultimately one of the all-time greatest quarterbacks we've ever seen. But he's also one of the biggest chokers we've ever seen.
Yeah, 100%.
And I got hammered for it. And if you look at his resume, since they went to the Super Bowl, they've been in the playoffs, I think 9 or 10 times. They haven't even sniffed the Super Bowl since. They were 15-1 after they won it. They got waxed by the Giants 38-20. And every year it seems you're good for 12, 13 wins. You get home field advantage. You get playoff games. There's no more friggin' mystique.
No, and then it's been recently, and then it's been some bad losses. Colin Kaepernick, they could not handle Colin Kaepernick. He used to tear them apart, right? So
Arizona losses. Remember those wild games against Arizona, Tampa?
Crazy situations. Now, but then a couple years ago against Tampa, it's when it hit me, and I don't want to be like a tinfoil hat guy. That 4th down play or that 3rd down play, he could have ran for that 1st down,
100%,
and he didn't. And then I think that's why LaFleur punted, because I think LaFleur was like, "Oh, you're not going to run for the 1st down? Okay, we'll give Tom Brady the ball back." And he went and he sat on the bench, and he had a funny look on his face. And I thought to myself, did this guy just not go for that 1st down on purpose?
And what happened later in the game? They took the ball out of his hands again and settled for the field goal.
I don't think that they was trying to win that game. He's a weird guy. I don't think he's win a championship again.
And lastly, you hear what he said on McAfee talking about, well, yeah, I still have it to win another MVP. I'm like, come on, man, what are you talking about? Like
a player award.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like that basically encapsulates your mindset as a whole, man. There was no there was no one more run in the Super Bowl. You're playing a crappy division. Minnesota's going to fall out. Chicago stinks. All you got to worry about is biting kneecaps with the Detroit Lions. And this guy's talking about individual awards.
Yep.
Unbelievable. Crazy. What do you owe your bookie? I see.
I'm playing down here. He pay now.
All right, listen. Where can everyone follow and check out the show?
Corey Nando and Friends on the Better Sports Network, 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Oh, you got to download this app. You have to download it, the Better Sports Network app. Talk fantasy, talk sports betting, talk collectibles. So come on over there. We do it 3 to 5 every Monday. We have a good time, a ton of laughs and stuff like that. And we try to get you some winners, and we've been doing that as of late.
All right, we'll have to talk about the Knicks later on.
We got some other
because
shit.
I don't know how it's gonna. I don't know what's gonna happen this weekend. You know, if we're next weekend, we're talking Giants, Cowboys in the NFC Championship.
That's cool. Oh my goodness!
Might have to bubble wrap each other.
Well, I'm gonna need a lot of blood pressure medication if that's the case. I'm not gonna be able to sleep because no.
Might have
but
to.
You know what? I'm looking forward to it. Hey, there will be an NFC East team in the NFC Championship game.
See that the glass half full. We might have to double charge it for therapy on the sofa with that one.
No doubt.
All right, brother. Hey man, it's great to catch up. We appreciate you jumping on BYP.